Alright, and we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I have a second video I want to do based on some article I saw, which I post the link in the description of this very video. It will be at the bottom, the very last part of the description of this video. So if you want to check out and read the entire article, it's not really that long, but if you want to, the link is there for you. I want to discuss this. Now, obviously, I'm on a comic channel. I've named it We Love Comics. I talk repeatedly about how the Marvel movies especially are amazing. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. I think the first movie was one of the, probably my top 5 all-time favorite comic book movies. But there's a situation that's going on that I really think people need to think a little bit deeper on. So this is going to be a little bit of a rant about this. Because according to the article, and it's on CBR.com, and again, I posted the link in the description all the way at the end, Dave Bautista, who is the actor who plays Drax for the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, has threatened to quit Guardians of the Galaxy 3 if James Gunn's script is not used. Now, as far as the script is concerned, I don't have a problem with the actual script. Because if James Gunn isn't a part of it at this point, I don't see what's the problem with using that as at the very least. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. But the thing that I have the major problem with is the actors have all grouped together and basically almost even threatened to boycott to even make the movie if James Gunn is not reinstated. Now, the first thing I want to say is, especially things that I've learned on my other channel, which I've taken a long break from, is I've researched a lot about contract law. That doesn't make me a lawyer or anything like that, so bear that in mind. But you don't need to be a lawyer to study law, just like you don't need to be a chef to be able to learn how to cook. There are certain things you can research on your own. Now, it doesn't matter that he can say, I quit, or the actors boycott, because they signed contracts. And they could rant and scream all they want, but they even know this, but unfortunately most people don't think about these things. They cannot just walk away, because I am sure in their contracts there are stipulations that would prevent things like that from happening. That's why they get paid all of this money, and a lot of times they get a lot of it up front, if not all of it. I mean, it depends on the actual contract, for multiple movie deals to keep them there. So it's nice that he's making his own personal stand, or the actors are making their own personal stand for what they choose to believe in. Right or wrong, that's their right to have that opinion. I will never take that away from somebody, even if it's something I 100% disagree with. But under their contracts, they cannot do that. Because, first of all, they'd have to give the money back, which they're not about to do, and second of all, there may be additional penalties and things like that. It really depends on the contract signed. So it's nice that they're saying these things and making these quote-unquote moral stances for James Gunn, but contracts are contracts. That's why they have people sign things. Now, with the part I have the problem with, and I think this is something that people really need to look a little bit deeper about themselves, because like I said in the beginning of this video, I love comic books. Obviously, I have a comic book channel. I love the Marvel movies, and the James Gunn firing is 100% the right decision that Disney made. And please let me explain before you go into some tantrum or some hatred based on emotion because you don't want your movie ruined. I think life and children should be way above the priority of a good or bad movie, especially one that you have nothing invested in other than 90 minutes of your time. In other words, you're not financing it, you're not creating it, you're not writing it, you're not in it, you're just a viewer of this movie that you will enjoy once, maybe twice, maybe a couple of times on a DVD. There are petitions right now to try and get James Gunn his job back. It's over 320,000 signatures. And there are people on Facebook who are on James Gunn's side. And again, you have the right to do that. But make sure you know the facts before you really want to invest in a conversation this delicate. Because if you have not read James Gunn's tweets, then you really cannot say you have a dog in the fight. Because if you are going to go into any debate with no information other than your own feelings, then you will lose every time, no matter how you feel. Because facts outweigh feelings every time. And those who signed a petition to get a potential, and I say potential, but a potential pedophile, a job where they make movies for children, because keep in mind, Disney does not make R-rated Marvel movies. At least not yet. They are PG, so that's geared towards a younger crowd. They've admitted several times it's for younger audiences. Now, I understand there are people in life who will make jokes. I understand there are times where many jokes are inappropriate. Maybe flat out rude, maybe totally racist. This is life. But if you have not read James Gunn's tweets, you will not understand that thousands of messages of him, quote-unquote, joking about raping and having sex with and pleasing himself against 15-year-old and younger children, at the very least, should not allow you to have a job that has children or involves children in any way, shape, or form. He has the right to say anything he wants, including inappropriate things. And make no mistake, I will be the first to admit there is a huge difference between somebody saying something and somebody doing something. But you also have to read in between the lines. A joke is something you say every now and then. When you obsess over something, there is potentially more to it than a quote-unquote joke. And if we as a society are more worried about a Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movie over the safety of our children, then our priorities are miscued at best and tragic at worst. Hollywood shows time and time again their allegiance. There has been a thing called the casting couch since the days of Shirley Temple. This is nothing new. Watch numerous videos from even people like Tom Hanks and many others who acknowledge the casting couch, acknowledge people that do inappropriate things and have done inappropriate things, and many people are paid for their silence. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not paranoia or crazy talk. It is actual confirmed research that you can find on your own. And I feel that 300,000 plus people who want a potential pedophile to make movies for children so they can have another good Marvel movie is very inconsiderate, very selfish, and very dangerous. What kind of precedent are we setting? I find it ironic, considering that Disney is associated with pedophilia more than people realize. Just type in Google this, sex in Disney movies, and you'll be shocked that almost every cartoon that Disney's ever put out has subliminal messages that you could clearly see by pausing the video. You just couldn't see it back in the days of VCRs and before then, but now with digital imaging, they can't hide it anymore. So I find it ironic that they fired this person. But also keep in mind, these tweets are years old. Disney didn't do their research? You don't think they knew about those? You don't think they don't research these things? And notice they only fired them when it became public? So did they really take the moral high ground? Or is it the typical hand in the cookie jar so you're admitting that you were stealing cookies? I have a problem. And this is the funny part. I don't have any children. So this is a topic I could easily stay away from because it doesn't affect me in any way. But wrong is wrong. And I say, even if he could do it, if Dave Bautista and the entire staff of Guardians of the Galaxy wants to quit because they would rather have a nice movie where they could make lots of money over the potential danger of somebody repeatedly, quote-unquote, joking about sexual acts to a minor, if that makes them quit, then I say have a nice life. Shame there won't be a Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And if that lowers the value of my comics, so be it. People should be embarrassed to defend somebody that does that. Now, like I said, he has the right to do it, but there are consequences to your actions. Just because you may have the freedom of speech to say something inappropriate or stupid or dangerous or what have you, does not mean there are not consequences. Go up to a black belt and call him every name, or her, every name in the book, and threaten to kill their family, which I hope you never do, but don't be surprised if he or she beats the living daylights out of you. Now, did you have the right to be that stupid? Yeah. But does that mean it is consequence-free? I'm sure people know the consequences of saying or doing the wrong thing, even if you have the right to do it. I'm sure if one of you went up to Dave Bautista and started getting in his face and insulting him or making accusations that were untrue, I'm sure he would probably do something about it. And as much as I love comic books, and as much as I love comic book movies, I like my integrity and morality much more. And like I said, I have no children. And if you have not read the James Gunn tweets, I cannot stress enough, Google, Bing, Ask.com, whichever search engine you so choose, type in the word James Gunn's deleted tweets and see years of him talking about wanting to rape, kidnap, and have sex with minors to the point where it is borderline crazy. I don't see one punchline. There might be 5 or 6 of them where you could say, yeah, it's a little sarcastic and a little over the top. But when you obsess over something enough, there's usually an underlying meaning behind it. Now, there are exceptions to every rule, and like they say in court, innocent until proven guilty. But you can, like they say, if you've ever been arrested or seen a movie about cops, like they say, you have the right to remain silent because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. That goes for tweets. And just like the Dave Harmon situation, I mean, who knows? Maybe he has that sick of a mind where he thought that was an actual joke. Maybe he has no thoughts in his mind about doing that to an actual baby, and I hope that's the case. Maybe he just thought it was a really sick joke. Let me ask you this. Couldn't he have kept his pants on when he mounted that baby doll? It would have served the same purpose. What was the purpose of him having to pull down not only his pants, but his underwear? It would have been the same joke, quote unquote. And for somebody to say, well, that happened 8 years ago, 9 years ago, that is such a weak argument. Thank God you're not a lawyer if you think that way. And I had many comments when I made that Dan Harmon video saying that ridiculous retort. Just imagine, and again, God forbid, I would never want this to happen, but if somebody raped someone in your family or murdered someone in your family and they got away with it, and then 9 or 10 years later they caught the person, are you going to sit there and say, oh, well, it was 10 years ago, so you're okay, you can go? Are you kidding me? The justification for, like I said, at the very least, inappropriate stuff that does have consequences, to what could potentially be at the extreme, wanting to fulfill fantasies or actually fulfilling them. And in this crazy world of child trafficking arrests by the hundreds, if not the thousands, all year, every year, this is not a conspiracy theory, and it is not an illusion, unless you choose to ignore it. So my channel is mostly about comic books and having fun and showing first appearances and unboxing like I did earlier. But there is also the reality of children should be more important than any comic book or any comic book movie. And if you defend somebody that says things like that and think you can get no consequences, that is a dangerous direction to head down. At the very least, be consistent. Because when Roseanne made a racial statement by saying a politician looked like a monkey from Planet of the Apes, did she have the right to say it? She sure did have the right to say it. That's the benefit of freedom of the speech. Was it smart? No. Was it appropriate? No. Did she have the right to say it? Yes. Was there consequences for it? There sure were. Even though it was a quote-unquote joke. After all, she is a comedian. James Gunn, however, is not a comedian. And he said numerous times inappropriate sexual acts towards minors. As anyone out there being a parent or knows anyone with children, you would like to think you would never want to associate with somebody who would repeatedly make sexual remarks towards a minor. And yet 300,000 plus people want to get this potential pedophile a job back that makes movies for children. And these actors, another word for liars, stand for him. And they just want to say, oh, he made some mistakes. Well, you know what? If you murder somebody, you made a mistake. Does that mean you don't have to pay for the crime? If you stole from somebody and realized that was a mistake, does that make it okay? It is unfortunate that there are people that their priorities are so low that they would want that particular type of person to continue to have a job that involves children. You know what? He has the right to have employment. Let him go work at Carvel. Let him work at 7-Eleven. Let him work at McDonald's and work a real job. Then he could make all the tweets he wants about wanting to have sex with children. Because if you actually look up pedophilia under the law, just commenting about it could be enough to create an investigation. So he should be lucky, and Dan Harmon and many others that do the sick stuff should be lucky that they only got fired or made to feel uncomfortable. If you had a babysitter that was going to be alone with your child while you were away, and you discovered, let's just say 20 quote-unquote jokes about how that babysitter would like to have sex with a child, would you for a second want that person within a mile of your child? Or would you say, oh, they're just jokes, come on in, here's the baby bottle, I'll see you tomorrow? If you do that, you should not be a parent. And you probably won't be a parent for long, making poor choices like that. Because even if they did not do anything, a smart parent would want to keep harm's way from ever potentially being near their child. That's why you put a child in a seatbelt. Because you're not expecting an accident, but you're preventing one from causing a catastrophe if, God forbid, there was one. So, to Dave Bautista, to Chris Pratt, to all of the other people who act or work in a movie where they make millions of dollars, not having to really work for a living like most of us have to do to barely make enough to get by, I say this to you. If you wish to quit, first of all, learn contract law, because it doesn't matter how much you scream. If you signed a contract with Disney, you are obligated. And I'm sure as heck, knowing that you will not give any money back. But if they let you go and you want to quit, by all means, please do. I don't care if it ruins the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I don't want somebody that writes those kind of disgusting things. And if you defend him, then you have not read the tweets, or you do not have children, or you just don't care enough to want to keep your children safe. And I think that's sad. So Dave Bautista, I know he'll never watch this, but if for some small chance he does, please quit. I don't want somebody like James Gunn that... And I'm going to make this straight out. When I first heard about it, I was disappointed, just like everybody else. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. It's like, oh, over tweets, how bad could it be? I was like most people that just heard the news kind of, you know, fluff it up a little bit by making it into no big deal and just kind of skewing the facts by saying, oh, he just wrote some controversial tweets. But you notice how no one ever mentioned what those tweets were? He talked about repeatedly pleasuring himself to Justin Bieber when Justin Bieber was between 15 and 16 years old. He talked about loving the movie Expendables so much that he was going to have sex with the little boy sitting next to him. And I'm paraphrasing, because it was a lot more graphic than that. And there are dozens upon dozens of these same quote-unquote jokes that really don't have a punchline. I think one of them was something as the code word eagle snatches a child means I'm having a good night. Things like that. Don't directly quote me on them because I don't have them here. Because the last time I actually read some of his quotes, my channel got flagged. Way to go, YouTube. So, this is a comic-related situation. That's why I'm doing it on this video. I'm sure there will be plenty of people that will cry in outrage and be all triggered by the fact that I'm talking about a movie that was great movies. And James Gunn was a great director. But I don't care if you were the President of the United States. I don't care if you were the King of Spain. I don't care if you're the Pope. I don't care if you just cured cancer. If you are wanting to abuse children in that way, you should not have the privilege of your job. You can still write plenty of tweets about wanting to have inappropriate situations with children on the unemployment line. Because trust me, as a owner of a business, I am not about to hire, for example, I am a massage therapist. I have my own massage therapy business. If I found out I was about to hire somebody that talked about how much they would love to have the fantasy of having sex with one of their clients, I would not hire the person. Now, does that mean they'd ever do it? Who knows? But do I want to have the responsibility of a potential lawsuit if that fantasy decides to come true? I have the right to not hire somebody or fire somebody. Just imagine if I hired a massage therapist and they were massaging children, because there are people who bring children to get massages. And that person had tweets about how they fantasized about doing inappropriate things in a massage with a child. If I found that out, that person would be let go immediately. Why? Because me, as a person, not only that would not agree with things as that is appropriate, but me as the owner of that facility, I am responsible for my employees. So what they do would come back on me. And I would see that as a risk. I don't care how nice the person is. I don't care how wealthy the person is, how connected they are. I don't care if it was James Gunn himself or Dave Bautista himself or God himself or herself, whichever you want to believe. So, if there's never another Guardians of the Galaxy movie because these people stood by a person that, at the, like I said, very least did something inappropriate numerous times, then so be it. I loved Rick and Morty. Was so looking forward to the next season coming out and the seasons coming before it. I had every one of his comic books and had a subscription to get every single comic book. I canceled that subscription. I will not watch the TV show ever again. It's disappointing, but my morals and integrity mean more to me than a comic book or a cartoon. What you do is up to you. But if we want a society where decency rules the day, then we may not want to side with somebody just because they happen to make a good movie or two. What message does that send to Hollywood or people in general? That as long as you do something we like, you can do whatever you want or say whatever you want? I am glad I do not understand that mindset. And yes, Professor X, you're right. In my opinion, in your opinion, James Gunn was so wrong for his tweets. He had the right to say them. In this country, you have the freedom of speech, which means you have the freedom to say the most stupidest things if you want to. But that doesn't mean there are not consequences. Disney is a business. You have now flooded them with problems with their stockholders. Because I say this all the time. Disney is not run by people who love Disney. Disney is run by corporate shareholders that are worried about one thing and one thing only: profit margin. And if all of a sudden there's this negative heat coming their way that lowers their stock value, they would rather get rid of the problem than defend it. That's why I'm really disappointed in Adult Swim, who chose to side for a person who did, at the very least, a very sick and inappropriate act, where he could have at least kept his pants and underwear on. Just imagine if you were a boss and you hired somebody that made a video like Dan Harmon did, and it got out there. Do you want that as your employee representing your business? I highly doubt it unless you run a porn site. And if you lose business for your own integrity, then you know what? You're a great person. It's called sacrifice. I really would love to see a Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and James Gunn was a great director. And I wish him well, and I hope to God his tweets were just that, just jokes. But there's an old saying that says, if it quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So I can't say for sure that his obsession with children and doing inappropriate things with them is just a fantasy or a reality. But if anything, it was obsessive. And I implore you to read those tweets, because when I did, I understood why Disney let him go, and he should never come back again. And if you actually research Hollywood and pedophilia, you'd be amazed at the stances. I implore you to watch a Quentin Tarantino interview with Howard Stern about his thoughts about having sex with a 14-year-old girl. I forget the Hollywood director. It was back in the 90s, where he drugged and raped a 14-year-old girl and fled the country, and he was considered a hero by Hollywood, and how the Hollywood missed that person. And when Howard Stern interviewed this director, Quentin Tarantino, he was justifying it, that the girl wanted it. And you can hear it in his own words. This is what Hollywood thinks. You want to support that? That's up to you. But I hope you don't have children. Because like I said, I don't have any, and I still think this is wrong. So that's all I'm going to say about that. If I get the thumbs down for this, I could care less. If you're mad that I am pooping on Guardians of the Galaxy, that's too bad. If it makes you unsubscribe, I say have a pleasant journey. But please, have Dan Harmon or James Gunn babysit your child. Let them stay overnight if you feel so loving and trusting. That it was just words or it was just years ago. You may not want to do that. So this is not one of my bubbly, lovely, fun unboxing videos. It's not going to be very popular, but I don't always do what's right for popularity. I do it just because it's right. And I think more people need to start stepping up to the plate. Otherwise, we're going to go in a direction that one day, your children are going to grow up hating you for letting it happen. That's on you. So those of you who actually appreciate this kind of stuff, I thank you, and I also say thank God for you. For those of you who have not read James Gunn's tweets, I challenge you to read them all and tell me you still defend that person. Because again, he had the right to do them, but that doesn't mean there isn't consequences. And he got his consequences, and he's lucky that that's all he had was getting fired from a job of making children's movies. Many people never see sunlight again. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.